Hello and welcome back to the Be a Better You podcast. I am so excited to bring you a new episode today. Today we're going to be doing a joint episode with another podcast host and survivor of narcissistic abuse. I am going to be interviewing, and then she is going to be interviewing me, and we're just having a really candid conversation about emotional abuse. Laura Richards is an international podcaster, a #1 bestselling author like myself, and a speaker who's dedicated to empowering women. And she has a global podcast called That's Where I'm At, and a bestselling book called Married to a Nice Guy, Getting Over Narcissistic Abuse. So in the work that Laura does, she shares her personal journey of recovery from a 32-year marriage to a narcissist. So her mission is very, very simple. It's to shine light on narcissistic abuse and let women know that they're never alone and that healing is always possible. So as you can see, we have a lot in common together, and I thought this would be a really wonderful episode for us to bring to you. So let's go ahead and get started. Well, I am so excited that we can have this conversation today, Laura. This is going to be so much fun, and I really am just thrilled that I had the opportunity to meet you and that we're connected on Instagram.
Yeah.
And hopefully, my hope is that this whole episode is going to be really powerful for everybody who's listening, for your audience and my audience alike.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I mean, I love when we can get both perspectives of different things, like our experiences, because so many of us have the same stories. But then, the details, they're all different. And I know it's going to resonate with people out there.
Yeah, and that's so true because even I know you have a book, I have a book. People will tell me, and I'm sure they tell you too, oh my gosh, your story reminds me so much of my story,
Yeah.
but this was a little bit different, or that was a little bit different. Like, so
Right.
they can find those similarities, but everybody has their own personal journey, their own personal stories, and all of
Yeah.
that. So this is going to be a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
Yes, it is.
Well, let's start with you then.
Okay.
Tell me, because I'm getting to know you too, like not just
Yeah.
my audience and your audience, but I want to know more about your journey and how it started, that you have come so far to where you're at now. So can you just summarize that and tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah. I mean, it hasn't even been 3 years since I've been divorced, but I've done a lot because, when you're with a narcissist, that's what I call my ex. He's got all the signs. He's textbook. When you're with somebody like that, they really want to keep you down. And so I got divorced almost 3 years ago, and I thought we were getting divorced for irreconcilable differences. And then a few months later, when you leave abuse, you start to get clarity. And I started to sort of unravel some lies. And then I found out he was dating somebody I had always suspected he was dating. And like she was always around. And, she's just a friend, that whole crap thing. And once that happened, once I found out about them, it was like a lightning bolt. And I understood so many things. And that's when I just started unraveling narcissistic abuse, what had been happening to me. It all made sense. I'm telling you, I don't know if you felt like that, but once you figure something out and you can put a name to your pain, I felt seen and heard. That was the bottom line. I felt seen and heard because, I felt crazy for years going like, I don't understand. Why is he so difficult? And why can't I explain myself better? And I always joke like, I wish I had a PowerPoint, then I could explain it to you. And he and he would go, oh sure, yes, I totally understand how I'm abusing you or whatever, right?
Mhm.
And anyway, so that's sort of what happened. And I just felt a need to, the short version is I felt a really big need to share this information with others so that they wouldn't be caught in the web of lies that I had been in for 33 years. And so I started sharing in a real petty way on social media. I was super petty. It's great. I love it. I repost those videos all the time because they're so fun. And and that's how I felt at the beginning. I was mad. And I was like, I just need to tell people. And now as I healed, I was like, I want to do a podcast
Yeah.
and have other people tell their story and we can all heal together. So
Yeah.
that's what I've been doing
So
for the past
the
few.
was the I guess the one moment, like the pivotal moment was when
Yeah.
you connected the dots between him dating this person and you
Yeah.
were like, "Oh my gosh, I suspected this all along." And
Yeah.
now That's
Yeah.
that's real.
That's
So
the thing. Yeah,
yeah,
that's the thing that really woke me up because there were things I had seen along the way, like I'd seen videos, but I wasn't sure, and it was starting to make sense. Like it was so many little pieces. I've heard this from so many people. But as soon as like something happens, like you catch them in the ultimate lie, you catch them in betrayal or something, that's when like the puzzle pieces came together and I was like, "Oh, oh, he's a narcissist." And so what I started to understand was, okay, this is narcissistic abuse and what they do and their patterns and everything. I was like, "Oh, I'm not crazy. He's been lying." And
yeah,
he's been lying like our entire life. That's what and I am so sad when still to this day I'm so sad that I have to say that. But
yeah,
I can look back to the beginning. He's been lying since the beginning
yeah,
and it makes me really sad.
yeah.
But
So
but
did he when you were married, did you bring it up about this woman to him, and did he try to gaslight you and say like, no, no, no?
yes,
Yeah,
she wasn't the only one.
yeah,
We've been to therapy over others
yeah.
and she wasn't the only one. But she was the last one. She was a coworker and he was like super blatant with her. Like just I'd say like, "Hey, where are you at?" "Oh, I went out to dinner with coworkers." And then he'd come home and I'd be like, "Or just her?" And
Mm,
he's like, "Yeah, just her." Like handed me on a silver platter the red flags, but by then, at that point, when she came into the picture, we were 25 years in. What was I going to do? I wasn't going to do anything. I'd been trained and gaslit and manipulated to be like, don't ruffle feathers. Not to mention, I was terrified. You know, we always say like you should just leave, but you don't just leave because you have fear. You think you're lonely. You also think about how am I going to survive? And you've known nothing else and then people shame you into like, oh my gosh, you gave up on your marriage and all this when there's so much that was just like, I just thought he said out of his mouth, I want to work on our marriage, I love you, I'm committed to you, etc. So
hmm.
why would I believe anything else? This was my husband of 2 decades at that point. Why would I believe anything else? That's what he told me.
Right.
So
Yeah,
of
you trusted him, and he
course.
betrayed that trust and had been all along.
Right, exactly, and it's so
That's a
sad.
hard pill to swallow. I know
And
because I, I felt that too.
you did.
Yeah, it was really, really. I had a similar pivotal moment like that, but mine
Okay.
is different, and I wrote about it in my book where um, I was really heavily involved in social media, Twitter at the time,
Okay.
and I was talking to people like in the DMs and stuff about different things, different interests that I had, politics, things like that.
Okay.
And I had started to talk about some annoyances that my husband was doing and things that I was upset about. And and I wrote about this person that I was talking to said to me, "This sounds like narcissism. This sounds like psychopathy. This sounds like sociopathy." And I was like, "What?" I was
Wow.
like, "No, like this is not the case. Like you crazy." Like because I used to think of it like how the Hollywood portrays it. Like
Yes, exactly. Yeah, like the malignant narcissist is what we
yes.
see a lot of times in Hollywood is that the people who are really out there, but I had a covert narcissist and I don't
Same.
know if you did too,
Same.
right?
Same.
Yeah, and so behind the scenes they are jerks and then and etc. And
Yes.
then out in public they're the nice guy.
Yeah, you don't realize it. And so like when that person said that to me, I was in denial pretty heavily.
Yeah.
And then I started to be like, but it was a seed that was planted that I needed because I just thought narcissism was like when you just love yourself and you just look in the mirror and you just so egotistical like that. I didn't
Right.
know the depths of hell that a narcissist can do to you. So I started researching on my own and I had this like brain explosion. It's the best way I could
Yes.
explain. I was like, oh, like you said, it's like the beautiful mind thing when like all the
That's
pieces start coming
exactly it.
together.
That's it. It
Yeah.
all just it's so clear all of a
Yeah.
sudden.
It
Yeah.
was so, but it was also very scary and terrifying to me at the time because it was like how you had that revelation that like he'd been lying the whole marriage. I had that revelation too. Like he's been doing this the whole time on purpose, like to
Right.
fulfill some need in himself, to
Mhm.
hurt me, to keep me under control, to manipulate me. So that was my
Yeah.
kind of light bulb moment like you had.
It's so sad. And how long, okay, were you guys still together when you were figuring all that out?
Yeah, we were 100% married at that point. I
Okay.
had, and I wrote about this too, and I'll just share it because it's fine. I had a really drunken night,
Hmm.
and I had been thinking about like just being so miserable and unhappy in the
Hmm.
relationship for a long time. I had been feeling really miserable. And we went out with friends one night, and he loved to push the alcohol. He loved to top me off. And in my marriage, that night I had had a lot to drink, and my ex-husband at the time, well, my husband at the time, we went out with friends, and I got really, really drunk, and I told him I wanted a separation, and I didn't know that I had done that.
Oh my gosh.
So that was really, really scary because
You
he
know,
did.
it's truth serum.
I
You
know,
got to
and
be
I
careful.
know, and he just badgered me, badgered me, badgered me, said, "Do you want a separation?" And that was kind of the key thing that pushed me towards like getting out of the relationship and planning my escape.
Hmm.
And I planned it all under the cover of darkness because I didn't want him to know. And I know you know how important that is too.
Yeah. And that's the thing that people need to remember is like, I wasn't physically in danger, but I also didn't tell him everything I was doing. And you have to be that way. You can't sit there, especially we've been trained that way. We've been trained to tell them everything and, make sure they know our every move. When you're trying to leave a narcissist or anyone abusive, you cannot tell them what you're doing. You have to make a plan,
Hmm.
you know, a quiet plan. That's what they say. Like it's just like the whole thing, even like with quiet quitting. Like everybody's just like, just leave quietly.
Yeah.
Don't make a fuss. And it's not something we're trained to do. And so even some of the things I was taking from the house, I got rid of them out of spite, really. But I didn't tell him what I was doing.
Yeah.
I
Did
didn't
he
tell him.
badger you, or did he want to know? Or is he kind of like just, okay,
No,
cool.
no, because he was kicking me out of the house. I couldn't afford to buy him out. So and he's like, what am I going to do? And one of our kids was living with us. And so he's like, I have nowhere to go.
Mm.
Such liars, because he ended up with his girlfriend. So it's like, I have nowhere to go. What am I going to do? Because he would have to admit, I'm going to move in with my girlfriend. Let's sell the house and we'll divide it. Like that's eventually what we ended up doing once I found out about the girlfriend. But he didn't bother me that way. He was just like, well, you have to leave. And one of the things that I really felt was I didn't want to stay in the house anyway, because I think it would have been too many memories and I think it would have been hard for me. Not to mention it was down the street from where he lives now. So that would have been really hard for
Yeah.
me. So
Yeah.
that was one of
Well,
the, I didn't fight
yeah.
him on that.
Well, and I agree, like the planning is key. It's really important, and keeping your cards close to your chest, like
Yes.
don't reveal, because that's the thing. Like the more information you give them,
Yeah.
you knew this, like when you're in the relationship with them, they used it all against you anyway. Anything that
Right.
you revealed to them, they would use against you.
Right.
So why are you giving them the information when you're trying to get to a place of safety,
Right.
out of the relationship? You've got to keep that lock and key. However, knowing how relentless they are, like my ex was constantly pushing, badgering, trying to get
Yeah.
me to reveal, reveal, reveal,
Yes.
tell and tell, and I'd just be like, I don't know. I haven't decided. Da da da. I
Okay.
would just be very
Okay.
vague. I was gray rocking a lot towards the end.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
from like, for like 4 months while I was planning,
Mhm.
and I knew I was checked out. Like I was ready to go. I was like, I know I'm getting out of here, but I was
Yeah.
doing a lot of gray rocking. And meanwhile, I think he thought there was a chance because he was sending me like
Mm.
apology notes and like, all kinds of like things to try. His mom was sending me videos, like the walk away wife videos and like different things. So it was like, but I had already made my decision. And I think that's really key for people to understand, especially if you're still in the relationship,
Yeah.
is to, and I've even heard this from people who've gotten out saying, I wished I had not told him.
Yes. Yes.
So,
And I think it's because we are trained that way. They do badger us. But that's when we have to start learning boundaries and being like the gray rock, I think is great, where
mhm,
you're just answering simple questions, you're not giving information, and they have to say, even if they're saying like, "Oh, you're probably moving in with a boyfriend or something." It's
mhm,
like let them say what they want to say.
exactly,
Let
exactly.
them say whatever they want. It's because now they're losing control of you and they don't know what to do. So they
Right.
have to. emotionally damage you or emotionally hurt you. And it's the time to be strong. It's so funny because, see, I didn't know any of this stuff because I didn't know he was a narcissist. So I didn't know any of this. So when I was going through my divorce, same thing. Like I said, I was done. I had the reverse discord. I talk about it in my book. And I said I was done. So he could play, then he could play the victim and say I was leaving him and all that stuff. And it's what they do. And he had already told everybody he was in a miserable marriage and I was leaving him and all this. And I remember standing up and not talking to him for 2 days. And then he was like, "Are you serious about us getting a divorce?" Yeah. And my answer was yes. And that was it. And that's what gray rock sounds like. And
Yes.
I didn't know any of this. I didn't know about like, breaking the trauma bond by blocking him everywhere. I didn't know any of this because I didn't know he was a narcissist at first. I
Yeah.
just knew I was in survival mode and now I was in a different survival mode. And I had to heal myself and I had to choose me. I'd never chosen me. So I had to choose me. And that's what it looked like.
Yeah. Wow. That is and so interesting that you were even like, I don't know, instinctively
Yeah.
behaving that way when you didn't even know that those were tools. Like I actually had done so much research during that time that I
Yeah.
knew that, okay, I need to implement this tool. So I'd be giving him very short, like, uh-huh, yeah. Like he would even want to like get me to like laugh or like even
Oh,
like any
yeah.
sort of like emotional engagement that he could
Yeah.
try for, and I just was like I would just be very like neutral, and but I always have told people too, like people who have high narcissistic traits, full-blown narcissist, covert, malignant, whatever, they're lacking something inside themselves, right? So
Yeah.
they're trying to get it from
Yeah.
you through
Right.
whatever means that is.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's your laugh, whether it's your crying, whether it's your anger, whether it's your whatever, like anything is going to fill that bucket for them. So that's
Mm.
why they use you to try to fill it up.
It's so gross. Okay, so now when you filed in January,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
what because in Nevada when you file, you're the next day we were divorced. Like, so
Mm.
how
Oh
did that
gosh,
work?
no. We file, and I feel like it was like you had to be separated for 6 months.
Yeah.
Um and so we were, but then everything kept getting dragged out, dragged out, dragged out. So it was like
Okay.
there were certain things we agreed to right away, like how we were gonna like deal with the kids and like the
Okay.
custody arrangements and stuff like that. But then the thing that I knew that was never, ever, ever gonna be quick and dry and easy was the finances and
Yeah.
splitting up the finances. And I was right, and it was like it was horrible. It was really, really tough. So I eventually ended up giving up my claim to maintenance, like alimony,
Okay. Yeah.
because I just wanted to be divorced so bad. So it was like a
Yeah.
whole year before I could even get him to sign the divorce papers because we couldn't come to agreements and we kept going back to court. Like it was so
Yeah.
annoying. So finally, we were able to divide everything up, and then I relinquished my, any claim to any alimony or maintenance because I just
Okay.
wanted to be totally,
Yeah.
we were still sharing bank accounts. We still, like, I was just like, I got to get
Yeah.
disconnected from this person. So yeah, it was a long process here where I live.
Okay. Well, I'm so sorry
So
about
that's
that.
nice that you could make it so quick.
Well, it's Nevada. Feel free to come get married the same day or divorced the same
True.
day, anything you want. I mean, sadly it's true, but I I think I never really thought anything about the separation thing that you have to go through, but I have a friend who's in a different state and she has to be separated, legally separated for a year. And like she's in fear for her life,
Hmm.
and so that she still has to be married is scary. And
Yeah.
so, and I don't know the reason, but I think it's to try and keep women married. And I understand that, but to me, when you are in abuse, it's scary. It's
Hmm.
really scary. And then when they drag it out, that to me, I'm thankful we were able to just get through it. But I was also, when I think back to it, I was still an abused woman who was like,
Hmm.
"Yeah, that sounds fine, sure." And then we just divided everything in half, and yeah, that sounds good.
Hmm.
And I never pressed to see his like certain financial records and stuff, and I deserve half of those, and I never got it. And
Hmm.
so, and what was I going to do? I'd have to go to court for that. and I can't afford that, which is the whole point. That's the whole point. And
Yeah.
so I know he kept money from me,
Yeah.
which what can you do? And that's the hard part. And why, like, the other side of, like, you have to be separated for 6 months, maybe you'd get some clarity during that time and be able to, like, say, like, okay, I want this and I want that.
Right.
Because maybe I would have had some clarity, but I don't
Yeah,
know. I
that's a
don't know
good
what he
point. I hadn't really thought of it in that perspective, but it is a really good point. I mean,
Yeah.
this is something that I have talked about on other people's podcasts when I talk about my story, and so I'll just bring it up here too, is that
Uh-huh.
my attorney, when I hired him and I explained to him, I said, I do not have a job. Like, I do not
Yeah.
have access to money. Like, yes, I have credit cards and stuff that we have jointly in the bank account and stuff, but like, I'm
Yeah.
not making my own money. So, how do I afford you? How do I afford paying for you
Right.
during this time that we're separated and we're trying to work all this stuff out, right? Because I deserve to have somebody represent me, even though I don't have the money technically. And
Yeah.
so, what he did, and I don't know if this works in every state, but at least it worked in my state, um, is he said, we can put you on something called status quo. So
Okay.
essentially, what that is it means all the finances stay exactly the same until you get divorced. So if
Oh,
you're used to spending money on the credit cards, if you're used to taking money out of the bank account, if you're paying things for yourself or the kids, like all of that stays the same until it gets final with the divorce. So I was able to, now we're in the divorce situation, pay for my attorney out of our joint money.
okay.
I was able to do that. So a
Yeah.
lot of women, I think, immediately, like, either they don't know that that's a possibility, or they immediately concede to, well, I don't have any money and he has all the money, and like I'm
Yeah.
not going to be able to pay for anything, so I'm just like stuck.
Well, and I mean, that's the biggest reason I hear from people is financially. And that's why a lot of people recommend having your own bank account.
Mhm.
But even a friend of mine, she had to secretly go open a
Mhm.
bank account and all these different things. And to me, the whole thing, the system, I think, isn't set up to for women to, figure stuff out, but the system is getting better where we can. And so
Mhm.
keeping things separate, I was always taught, and we're societalized, put everything together, and you're one and all that. And it's like, gosh, that sounds great, but until somebody is abusive with the money. Because it was so funny, we decided to get a divorce, and soon after that, like, I would go grocery shopping or whatever, and he'd be like, "Why are you using my money?" And I was like, "We're married. This is our
Yeah,
money."
where do you think I'm going to get it to buy the food?
But, he would always complain. Even when I paid, like, the bills
Mhm.
of the house, he would be like, "You spend so much money." And I'd be like, "I paid bills today." He'd be like, "Yeah, but you paid them. So you're the one who spends too much money." So, I mean, he was
Yeah.
a crazy person all the time. And, like, stuff like that, I'd be like, "That doesn't even make any sense." And so I would kind of fight him on it, but he would never back down, then expect me to pay the bills again. And then so I just learned to live with it, and I think a
Mhm.
lot of us do. We just
Yeah.
learn to live. You keep the peace.
Yeah.
You learn to live with it. So
Well,
how oh, go
this
ahead.
sounds like now this sounds like a really good segue too, because
Okay.
clearly you are a successful woman and you have books and coaching businesses and podcasts, and you have freedom now.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I'm just really curious
Okay.
how you got there, like, because you've actually accomplished a ton of shit in 3 months or 3 years since the divorce.
Yeah.
Like, that's amazing.
Well, I felt, so tied down, and, like, he wouldn't let me ever dream. He would tell me, "You should have your own hopes and dreams." And I'd be like, "Okay, this is what I dream." And he'd be like, "No, not that. Like, that's not what you should do, and that's embarrassing." And because I'd want to be a speaker, I wanted to help women. Those are things I did in my church as well. I had a women's table, and I was always encouraging women, and forgot to do that for myself, those kinds of things. And he'd be like, "Oh, it's so embarrassing. And I can't believe you would want to do that. And you can't make money off of that anyway. So what does it matter?" And that really made me sad. So I'd be like, okay. And so I would go to therapy over that, over, like, how do people dream? And they'd go, like, "What do you mean? Like, how do people dream?" And I'd be like, "Well, how are people allowed to dream?" Because I feel like when I dream, people, and I didn't realize it was just that it was him. People around me tell me no. And I just remember working that out with my therapist, not realizing what was going on. So, anyway, so after we got divorced, it didn't happen right away. Literally, it was just healing, just a lot of healing, therapy, walking, just really listening to my body, what's going on in my head and my life. What do I want? What does Laura want for the future? I mean, just journaling. And journaling was so instrumental for me in working out my feelings and my hopes and dreams. And it was only later on, as I went through a few different things of like divorce groups and talking with friends, that I found I wanted to tell my story. And I also wanted to help other people tell their story, because where I was in my life, in the divorce group and in around some of the toxic friendships I had, they said, you shouldn't be talking about this. Just move on, forgive him, don't talk about it. And all that does is protect the abuser. And I didn't understand that. And I said, well, I don't understand. Why don't we talk about abuse? Like, why not? And they're like, well, I mean, he didn't hit you, so
Mhm.
it's not really abuse. And I'm like, I don't get it. So it's a lot of soul searching. We're trying to get help in the community and then walking out going, I feel worse. I feel
Yeah.
worse in this part of my life.
Yeah.
So now I have a podcast, started talking about it all over social media, getting better about doing that, to find my people who need to hear my story and then have their story told, and then just feel like they're not alone. That's the biggest thing. I want women to know that they're not alone in this,
Yeah.
and that's why I keep doing it. And so that's what I'm doing,
That's
and
amazing.
figuring it out as I go along. And now, yeah, and the thing is, I do have freedom and peace. That's the biggest thing. I have
Mm-hmm.
peace in my house.
Yeah. It's
So
not something we ever like. Sometimes when you feel that peace, it's like, this feels weird. Like when you start your healing journey, it's like, this is weird. Like,
yeah.
I'm not used to this. Like, this is,
Yeah, like a slamming door, things like that. Because I live in a condo, so with like a slamming door, things like that. I just, even every once in a while, even my therapist is like, it's normal for humans to be startled by slamming doors. It's okay. And I'm like, okay. But I said, I feel like it took a long time to go like, up, that door's not for me. Like,
hmm,
that's not me. I'm not in trouble.
exactly. Yeah.
There's nothing going on, and so I had to really learn how to live in the silence and the peace and have the freedom. I wasn't looking at my watch
Hmm.
when I was out with friends
Oh,
going
yeah.
like, oh, I should get home by now.
Yeah.
Is he home from work? It's like, I have nowhere to be, and
Yep.
no one's
Yeah.
going to bother me, that kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
so I want to know about you and your podcast. Did you start the podcast first? Did you start coaching first? What did you do?
Well, really, what happened for me was similar to your story. I was posting things on Instagram and like, but it wasn't using this name. It was just like a covert narcissist like page that I had created,
Okay.
and I was just like really educating people about it because I'm like, I lived this for 20 years. I'm an expert. So like, I was
Right.
just educating people,
Yeah.
and then my account started getting bigger and bigger, and I was like, I remember thinking one day, people say all the time, oh, I could write a book about all the
Yeah.
things that happened to me. And I was like, I am going to write a book about all the things that happened to me. And so I started the process of writing my story. And through that process, which was very, very healing, very cathartic,
Yeah.
um, and I knew there was never even a shadow of a doubt that I was ever going to do it. Like sometimes you think, oh, I'm going to have this idea and then I'm going to do it. And then you just maybe fall off and you don't. Like there was never a doubt in my mind. So the book was first. The book came
Oh,
first.
okay.
And then through my healing journey, I was listening to other people's podcasts and I
Mm.
found this podcast and it was like a divorce podcast. And I remember I just put it on and I would just listen to the episodes over and over and over. And I was like, this is amazing stuff. Like it was all about like reprogramming your mind and getting into the subconscious to change how you think. And
Oh, okay.
it
Yeah.
was so good. And so I was like, I'm going to message this lady. So I got on Instagram and I messaged her and I was like, I love your podcast. Can I take one of these episodes and embed it onto my website for my book? Because I think the people who read my book could really benefit. She was like, oh, yeah, absolutely. So she gave me the embed link and I put it on there. And then we started chatting. And one day she asked me through our conversation, "Have you ever thought of being a coach?" And I was like, I mean, maybe. Like, I like to be a leader. I like to help people. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
She's like, let's get on a call. She's like, I run an institution and I teach people how to do this method. I was like, what? Oh, yeah. So I got on the call
Wow.
with her. I signed up immediately. Like, I just knew it was what I wanted to do. And during the training of like how she was training me, I was also having to do the process myself for my own healing because she's like,
Yeah.
you can't teach people how to do something if you don't know how to do it yourself. So
Yeah.
part of the certification was to do this process yourself and do it on yourself. And
Wow.
as I was doing it, I was like, this is changing my life. It was literally changing my life. And I wasn't getting triggered anymore. I wasn't having these like emotional spinouts. I wasn't having these like breakdowns constantly.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's something amazing here. So that's what led me into being a coach. And then after I did that for probably about a year, then I started my podcast as a
Okay.
way to get the message out more and help
Yeah.
people learn how to do the things that I do and how I help people. So, yeah.
That's
So,
amazing. I
hmm
mean, there's something about podcasting when my podcast producer, she said, you're going to do so much healing as you're interviewing people. And I was like, that doesn't even make any sense. But it's something about it is so amazing. Talking to other people and listening to stories and that we share similar experiences is so healing because we walk out of this marriage usually in shame, like shame, ashamed. I know I did that. I didn't see it or that I was so bamboozled. But we have to remember they were lying to us. So it's not like
yep.
we didn't see it, they were lying to us. They were
Yeah.
being a certain way. And so talking with other people really has helped me
Yeah.
so much in my healing too. And then having them share their story. I love it. I love that we talk about these things where for a while people were telling me not to talk about it. And I was like,
hmm
okay, well then watch me pick up a microphone.
You're like, I'm going to take this to the next
I'm
level.
going to talk about it even more.
That's right. I'm a rebel. Sorry.
That's right. And then it was about a year into the podcast that I was like, I should write a book. And so,
Wow.
yeah, so I wrote my story of healing and then also like it goes back and forth because
Mhm.
I talk about my journals. It's my journal entries and I break it down to show like healing because there's some journal entries where like I'm feeling so good today.
Yeah.
And then other journal entries where I'm like in the pit of despair.
Right.
But I wanted people to see that
Yeah.
healing is not linear and then I talk about what the narcissist does and all that stuff and how you heal from it and where I'm at
Yeah.
and that's about it just to kind of it's just like my personal story
Mhm.
so it's not like a workbook or it's not
Yeah.
like a where you go this but there is a glossary in the back which I
Yeah.
think is so boring but I'm so educational I couldn't help it. I'm like here's some definitions for you.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a good mix between like a memoir and instructional healing,
Yeah.
like the story of how you did it, which is great. And I think people need to see how other people do it because the one thing I've learned on my healing journey is that it is not all the same for everyone. Like what works
Right.
for you may not work for me.
Yeah.
I've said this to a lot of people. I do not like breath work. I've tried it and I do not like it. It makes me feel like I'm putting myself into like a panic attack or something. So like I prefer not to do that. So
Yeah.
I know some people swear by it and they're like it has changed
I
my life. It
know.
is so healing and I'm
Mhm.
like so I'm not the kind of person who thinks you should only do things one way. Like I think you should
Yeah,
do
no.
things that what's right for you. But
Yeah.
hearing your story and when people get to read your story and like my story and how I changed,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, maybe I'd like to try that or maybe that could work for me too.
Yeah.
You know?
And my therapist had said, she said, start saying yes to good things.
Mhm.
Because one of the things we said was there's plenty of time for Netflix and wine, which I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but there's plenty of time for Netflix and wine.
Get a
But
t-shirt for that.
yes, exactly. I am working on a t-shirt line, so
There you go. You got a slogan.
but that's not ultimately going to get us where we need to be. Okay. So that's why on my healing journey, when I would sit down to have a glass of wine, it felt familiar to when I used to numb out in my marriage. And so I don't really drink anymore. Yes, I do occasionally, but it's not like a everyday part of life. There's a bottle of wine in my fridge, the way it used to be, and do whatever works for you. But because of the way I listen to my body, and I said, "Oh, this is taking me back to when I used to
Mhm.
numb out in my marriage," and I didn't like the way I felt about that.
Yep.
I wanted to heal that first, and that's why now I can go out to dinner and have a glass of wine if I want.
Mm-hmm.
But then you'll get to menopause and you won't want to.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
a whole other thing.
that's so interesting because we've not talked about this before, but I have a very similar experience where
Oh,
I haven't drank in 3 years, not a drop, because partly it was a very similar experience as what you're
yeah,
talking about. Was like it started to feel like this is not like this is not conducive to my lifestyle anymore. This is not necessary for me. I don't like the way I feel with this. It reminds me of bad times, like
yeah,
so I just quit one day. I just was like, I'm not doing that anymore. And I just
yeah.
didn't. Like, and I don't shame anybody or think
Right.
negatively or judge anybody. Like, I don't care if people drink, if people do drink around me all the time, and that's totally fine.
Yeah,
Just for me personally, it was like how you were saying, it was like, ugh, like I need to like heal this because this, like I told you that time, I mean, part of my
yeah,
story is getting so drunk that I
yeah.
revealed to my husband at the time that I want a separation. Now, I will say, that was probably a blessing, truly.
Yes.
Because I
Oh,
don't know if I would have
seriously.
had the courage to do it or say it,
Ex
and maybe I'd
Yes,
still be there.
exactly. Yes,
So,
exactly. Because I remember I just kept saying, I need to leave, but I don't know what to do. And I was gonna leave, like for a week. I was gonna stay at a friend's house. Like I was gonna send a message. I'm thinking back, I'm like, poor naive little Laura, but that's okay. I mean, you do what you
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 only knew
do.
what you knew, right?
That's right. I was in survival mode and it's okay.
Mhm.
And I did what I had to do. So I like the way I'm thankful the way things happened and
Yep.
that he approached me, but then forced me to say in the reverse discard. I tell the whole story on my first episode as
Mhm.
well, but that if he forced me to go, you know what? Yeah, I think I am done.
Mhm.
And that made me feel so good. I was so brave. And I have to tell you that two of my children actually messaged me and said, we're so proud of you
Oh.
because they just knew I had been working and working and working and working and trying to save the marriage, whatever that meant. There's only so much you can do. And, you got to have two willing participants.
Mhm.
And I didn't feel like I did, even though he would say, yes, I want to work on our marriage. But excuse me while I leave and go who knows where, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It didn't make any sense to me. And then that breathwork thing is hilarious because I've done it
Yeah.
a couple of times and I do it every once in a while and I'm just like, I don't know, it's not my jam, but whatever. I really liked hypnosis, but I think we were talking about when my therapist said like say yes to the good things, right?
Mhm.
Because somebody asked me one day if I wanted to go hiking and I burst into tears.
Oh.
Well, because that was my ex-husband's thing was hiking and I only went hiking with him and I had to prove myself and I only could hike certain miles and then if I didn't hike enough miles he would call the other woman to go hiking with
Mhm.
him because she could hike
Oh
longer.
no.
So like I was subtly punished that way. That's
Yeah.
what people don't understand. Like
Yeah.
that's how I was punished.
Yeah.
Was I'm on the way home from hiking, he'd call her, "Hey, do you want to go
Yeah.
hiking at this trail and blah blah blah?" And I'd be like, "Yay." Like my heart's bleeding over here, but yes, please call your girlfriend.
Yeah.
But I mean right in front of my face and it's
Mhm.
like I only knew what I knew and I was manipulated and gaslit and I was trying to be a good obedient wife and not ruffle any feathers like I was told I did all the time and so I let him do whatever he wanted to do most of the time.
Yeah. But
And
we
so
we do that though to stay safe. I mean, it's a
always, yeah,
protection mechanism.
it is. And so I don't look back and beat myself up about it now. Laura now would be like, what the hell?
Mhm.
What are you doing right now?
Right?
Like I wouldn't allow that kind of behavior, but I allowed what I allowed and that's fine. That's
Yeah.
the way it is. And so my therapist said, so I told her, I said, I started crying because my friend asked me to go hiking and I said, what do I do? And she goes, you should go hiking. and
Yeah.
then you should see if you like it or not.
Yeah.
And then if you don't have to go. And I was like,
Right.
oh, what a great idea.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
get to
it's like so,
choose. Yeah.
yeah. Well, and when we've not been able to choose for so long,
Yeah.
we don't feel like we have that. So yeah, I went hiking and I like hiking and I'll
Yeah.
go when I want to go
Yeah.
and so
That's
it's
so interesting too, because that makes me think about how many things that I did for him and I
yeah,
lost my identity because he wanted to learn how to brew beer at home. So
yeah,
I helped him. He wanted to learn to go
yeah,
hunting. So I
yeah,
learned to do that. He wanted to do
mm,
frisbee golf. So I did frisbee golf. He like all the
yeah.
things that he liked to do. And then I was like, who the hell am I after I left? I'm like, what do I like to do? I'm like,
Yes,
I don't really like
exactly.
these things. Like, I don't think I actually like those things. What do I like
Right.
to do?
Exactly.
It's
It's so
hard.
sad. Let me tell you about pickleball. I always wanted to play pickleball or things like that, racket sports, but I didn't play ping pong, tennis, or pickleball because in high school he was on the tennis team, and so I was never good enough. Okay,
Hmm.
and also if I was good enough, I got in trouble. Okay, I
Hmm.
got yelled at. I was, showing them up because
Yeah.
they're babies and they got to win. So I was like, I've always wanted to play pickleball. So I bought some paddles, took a class. I was taking a lesson, me and a friend, and we were playing. And the instructor kept saying, "Is this your first time playing?" I go, "Yeah." And he's like, "You're really good." And I was like, "Oh, thanks." So anyway, by the end of the lesson, he's like, "Come on, we're going to go play a match with these people." And I was like, "Okay." And so at the end, he's like, I'm really impressed. Like, you've never done this? I said, no, I've never played
Hmm.
pickleball. And he's like, you're really good. And so I was like, oh, thanks, blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
And said goodbye to my friend, got in my car and cried
Oh,
because I was good at something.
yeah.
I was good at a racket sport that I was never allowed to try.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed myself. And someone was saying something nice to me.
Hmm. It's
It
amazing.
was a whole big trigger. And
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoyed it, but it was just like a whole big trigger. I'm like, you just never know what's going to
Yeah.
trigger you.
No, you really don't. Like I've gotten triggered of random things like and then later I was able to kind of connect the dots on it too. But like so a similar story that I have is that I wrote a book while I was married, a science fiction book, and my ex was a huge reader. He read
Oh,
all the time. He loved to read. And I really
okay.
didn't read a whole lot, but I'm very creative and I liked to write. So and I always had liked to write. So I wrote this whole book and I asked him to read it and he wouldn't read it. He refused to read it. I was like, I just want your opinion. I just, nope, I won't read it. Da, da, da. So
No,
it's in a drawer right now, but like, unbeknownst to him, I've got two books that he's a star in.
exactly. And when you were saying I wrote the science fiction book and my ex was a big reader, I was thinking,
Hmm.
and he wouldn't read your book.
No,
That's
he
the first
wouldn't.
thing
He
that
knew
I
it.
thought of.
Yeah.
No, of course not. And it was so funny to me, like the things that they would say, because my ex was a big reader as well. And he would like we'd be out with people and he'd be like, I just haven't even had time to read. And I'd look at him and go, like, I feel like you're reading every night in bed. And he's like, no, I haven't been able to read at all. And I'm just like, I'm so confused. Like, why would you lie about something like that?
Yeah.
That doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah.
But
But that's them. That's what they do.
they're liars. Liar, liar, pants on fire.
Yeah.
So okay, so I'm trying to think.
That is another t-shirt for you. So liar, liar, pants on fire. I'm
I
on
have
with all of them today.
I know I have a few that I'm trying to think of some catchy phrases
Yeah.
and but yeah, but I kind of like that stuff, so that's why
Yeah, that's fun.
I'm creating a t-shirt line just for fun.
That's
You
fun.
know,
I wanted to ask you too, what do you feel like because of the whole journey that you've been through, like starting out at the beginning all the way to where you're at right now, like
mhm.
people who are still in that, and I call it,
Okay.
I coin it the swamp. Like when you're in the swamp and you're in this like deep darkness, like you probably remember what that was
Yeah.
like. What is your, because you're not there anymore. You're in the light, you're up
Right.
the mountain, like you're like
Right.
woohoo, like people want to be there. So
Yeah.
what's your like wisdom or advice to help
Yeah.
them get there?
Well, you don't need a checkbox list or anything to say like, yes, he checks all the boxes. He's a narcissist or he's abusive or you don't need any of that. And people do want me to say things like that. They want me to say, when I speak with women, they want me to tell them, yes, your ex is a or your
Mm-hmm.
current partner is a narcissist, and yes, go ahead and leave.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to tell you that. What I am going to tell you is, how's your life? Are you living a life that you want to live? Is your partner for you or against you? Do you feel supported? And do you feel belittled, or do you feel supported and loved?
Mm-hmm.
And I was at a point, that's the question I had to ask myself because I didn't know anything else. I said, if I have to go another 40 years, it was arbitrary, right? My parents are married forever. His parents are still married. I thought, what if I go another 40 years with him? Am I going to live like this? I'm not going to make it. I won't make it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to push myself to say, there's got to be something better on the other side. We don't know what's on the other side. We don't know what else is going to be there, but I just knew that I wouldn't survive. And that's what I tell women when I work with them, like, look at your
Yeah.
life and decide, is this what you want to do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
That's.
that's because we can try to stay, because I've been asked that on interviews, can you stay? You can try.
Mm-hmm.
I did. I was a shell of a human, and it didn't matter what I did. I
Yeah.
tried to stay.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. I followed every quote unquote rule he had. I did every single thing, but they just move the goalposts.
Mm-hmm.
You can never reach what they want you to do. It doesn't matter. And even thinking about your book, like, they're not going to support you. I was never supported,
Mm-hmm.
celebrated.
No.
Those things are important to me. Supported, celebrated, all that. Even now, my friends wanted to take care of me for my birthday. They wanted to take me out, whatever. And I had the hardest time. I had to go to therapy for it and say, like, what if they take me somewhere and it's a big trick, and and they're going just to humiliate me. And they're like, and my therapist was like, are those the kind of friends you have? And I said,
Yeah.
no. And so I told my one friend, she goes, we're not like that. I said, I know.
It's.
So
Yeah.
I
It's just
don't
ingrained.
know. I don't know how to be supported. I don't
Yeah.
know how to be celebrated. And they said, I'll let you go through your trigger, but that's not what's going to happen. And we're picking you up at 2 o'clock to go to lunch. So
Mm-hmm.
be dressed for brunch. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay.
Yeah. It's. I mean, there's so many things that we have to go through, that people like to minimize emotional abuse and it's not that bad, and like it is like an indescribably
Yeah.
damaging,
Yeah.
and it is so hard to convey what it is that you went through to somebody who's never went through it. So that's
Yeah.
why I wrote my book. That's why you wrote your book. Like, you can actually see these things, like, and experience it and feel that validation about what it is that you're experiencing.
Yeah.
I also think that, to kind of piggyback on what you were saying about, like, because it sounds like to me, it's like trusting what you know, like trusting yourself, and, like, do
Yeah.
you really want to be in this? Like, is this really like the life that you want to stay in?
Yeah.
Um, and I think for a lot of people, the reason why they have trouble with that, and a lot of
Hmm.
people do, is because they don't, one, they don't know how to trust themselves, but two, they don't love
Yeah.
themselves. And a lot of times people get confused about what self-love is. And so I always
Yeah.
try to, because I really struggled with that. Like, I
Oh, yeah.
totally did not know what self-love was,
Me
or
too.
how to love myself. And I used to think,
Yes.
oh, I can take bubble baths and blah blah blah. Like, that is not self-love. Self-love is when you treat yourself how you treat others, how you would treat somebody that you loved, right? So
Yeah.
self-love is, am I being honest with myself?
Yeah.
Is it loving to not be honest with people? Most people would say no,
Right.
right? Well, are you being honest with yourself? Number
Yeah.
one, right? Are you lying to yourself? Do you talk to yourself nicely? Do you tell yourself you're an idiot? Do you tell yourself you're stupid? Like, that's
Right.
not loving. That's not self-love,
Right.
right? So we got to build that self-love to build the trust, right? And it's hard to do that when your hand is still on the hot stove. How are you going to heal that when your
Yeah.
hand is still, in the middle of it? It's
Exactly.
so hard. So partly, some of this has to be logic over emotion to get yourself
Oh, yeah.
out of there first.
I
And that
so
takes
agree with
courage. It
that.
takes a lot of courage. A lot.
That's the thing for me. Even when I said I was done, I was like, who said that? I was like
Mhm.
so surprised with myself because I never thought I could because we've been taught, like you were saying, we've been taught not to trust ourselves
Yep.
because especially when we've been so gaslit, many of us have. I mean, that's their cornerstone of what they use
Yeah.
to make you crazy. But we've been so gaslit that we can't trust ourselves because, well, you said this. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. Well,
Mhm. Mhm.
back and forth, back and forth. And so you do have to just, it's that whole saying of like, take the first step, even if you don't see the whole staircase, just take
Exactly.
it. Just take it. And I think also from my experience working with women, they want the whole plan. Like, how's it going to
Mhm.
go?
You don't know.
We don't know.
You don't know.
It's taking that first step and also having to love yourself enough that you're going to be okay with what they're saying about you
Yeah.
because guaranteed they're going to say something about you and also what people around you are going to say
Yep.
because people all the time were like, oh, you gave up on your marriage, I can't believe, some people are like, well, just run out the clock. That's a horrible way to live. I'm
Oh.
like, I did 33 years, I'm not going to run out the clock. Like that's no.
Mm-mm.
I
No.
like, no, another 40 years with this guy, no thank you. What, like not even knowing what he's doing or and the way he talks to me and the way he treats me, no, I mean, who wants that? And that's why you have to work on your self-love. Go
Mhm.
ahead and take your bubble bath, but you better be doing the work while you're
Yep.
in there thinking
100%.
about those boundaries. And that's the other thing too is people say like, what's the key? And the key to me is boundaries,
Mhm.
but you're not going to get there without self-love.
You're not.
That's the
Because you
key.
can't keep the boundary if you're afraid people are going to be mad at you. If
Yeah.
you hold the boundary, you're just going to fall back into your old ways and
Yeah.
drop
Or you
that
don't
guard.
think or you don't think you're worth keeping that boundary for.
Exactly.
And I had that with a friendship too after my divorce who I started to see the same patterns with and I thought, why do I continue with her and allow it? Because
Mhm.
I would say, here's my boundary and she'd go, okay, let me step right over it.
Mhm.
And we have to remember that boundaries are what we will do
Mhm.
if people continue with their behavior. And so think about that. So if your partner is doing something, whatever they're doing, treating you terribly, lying to you, maybe you've caught them in betrayal, okay, what will you do?
Yep.
And you don't even, you know, it's, sometimes people want to say, like, well, let them know. No. And like we talked about earlier, like, you don't have to let them know. And, I just couldn't do it. He didn't like it when I was saying what I was saying. And when I would talk to him after the divorce and he'd be like, oh, you're calling me a narcissist. I'm like, yeah.
Mhm.
And that was it. And he go, well, if that's how you want to live your life, they think they still own you forever and ever and ever. They don't care. They think they still own you. And they just are going, that's why you have to learn boundaries.
Yeah.
Well, self love and boundaries,
Well,
they go
yeah,
hand in hand.
they go hand in hand,
Yeah.
honestly, though, because you can't have self-respect if you can't hold a boundary, right? Because you're
Right.
proving to yourself that you respect yourself when you hold that boundary. So
Right.
you sort of teach people how to treat you like, look, I respect
Yes.
myself enough to walk away from this behavior,
Yeah.
and I'm not trying to tell you what to do.
Right.
You can do your thing. You
Right.
can be a liar. You can be a cheater. You can be, I'm
Yeah.
not going to be involved with that,
Right.
right?
Live
I'm
it
not
up.
trying to tell you not to be that way. You be
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just not going to participate.
How did you find as well after sort of like your friendship groups and things like that? I just noticed that as I was healing and setting boundaries, that I saw some friendships fall away that were no longer,
Mhm.
they didn't they didn't work well with my new boundaries, and I was more of a positive person and I just was living a life where I was thinking about me for
Yeah.
once.
Well, that's the dilemma because
Yeah.
we need support and we need people,
Mhm.
but your circle starts to shrink and get smaller
Mhm.
and smaller and smaller. And that
Yeah.
was to me like super shocking because it was like my ex-husband has a very large family and I do
Okay.
not. So I was very, very involved with his very large family and
Mhm.
extended family. Lots of people, lots of parties, lots of, everywhere. And we live in the same community.
Okay.
So, like, I lost everyone that I
Yeah.
knew, except
Yeah.
for a very, very, very small group of people. The smear campaigns happened, the lies, the
Yeah.
lying to my
Yeah.
children, lying through court documents, like all the things, right? And so I noticed, same as you, people
Yeah.
started like The other thing is, I think a lot of times when people choose sides, which happens,
Yeah.
but also that the way that I was growing was not conducive to some of these other people
Yeah.
because they didn't like that. Because they
Mhm.
didn't like that I stood up for myself, or they didn't like that I had
Mhm.
a boundary, or they didn't like my perception on something anymore.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to speak up, I'm going to say the truth, I'm a different person, right? I am
Mhm.
changing in a very good way. But
Yes.
that causes, and actually, I don't see it as a negative because
Yep.
if people just walk themselves right out of my life, I don't need those kinds of people anymore.
Yes. It's true. I mean, I had a really hard time with it. Um, because I was just so surprised by it. And that's why I like to talk about it now to let people know like it's okay. Because when we hold on to the wrong things in our life, there's not room for the right things to be there.
Hmm.
Like the right friendships that maybe have been there and now they emerge. You get closer to those people because they share the same values as you do now, and then maybe you meet new friends along the way who like this is the thing I have found is, and I saw this somewhere online where they talked about the language of healing. There's a language that we have when we've been through healing, the way we talk, like you and I talking about boundaries, like we were both in agreement and saying the same things because we've been through the healing. And the people who haven't been through healing, we don't have to say to them, hey, you should really go through healing or you can't be my friend. We don't need to say that to them because they somehow, their soul or whatever it is,
Hmm.
it sort of like feels, antagonized some way to that they have to step up their game.
Yeah.
Like, why are you up here thinking you're better than me? This is,
Hmm.
I know these are thoughts because I
Yeah, it's an
have,
ego thing. It
it's an ego
probably
thing.
triggers them in some way.
Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. And some people don't want to change, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's
They
fine.
don't have to change. Like we said, nobody has to change. That doesn't mean you get to be in my life, and
That's
that's
right.
okay.
That's right.
And that's okay. So the people I have around me now are such quality people.
Yeah.
And yes, you have those sushi friends or whatever where you don't have to talk about every little thing, but I'm telling you,
Yeah.
I love those friends. I just went to my class reunion and I have to tell you, I had people coming up to me, oh my God, I love your book. Okay, so I was married to a narcissist.
Oh,
You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
and these are people I haven't spoken to in years,
Yeah.
but they were like, oh my gosh, keep talking about it.
Yeah.
Keep doing this, and so they know, they understand, and they have this, they're telling me their story just real quick at the
Hmm.
at the
Yeah, they just want
class
to talk. I
at the
know.
class reunion. It's so
Yeah.
fun to. So you're right, people are out there, your tribe is out there.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, you have to let go of the
You
wrong
do.
ones.
But it's quality over quantity, in my
Oh,
opinion. I'd rather
yes.
have a few really quality people than a slew of toxic or not quality folks. So
Yes,
this has
exactly.
been so fun
I know.
about this. Um, what can you tell us, like what you're working on now, like how my
Sure.
audience can connect with you, your audience
Sure.
can connect with you?
Yes, that's right. Well, everything will be in the show notes for both of us so we can so I always tell my audience, please go connect with my guest, and because if I can't help you, she probably can.
Hmm.
So, that's where I'm at podcast is the name of my podcast, but that's where I'm at podcast.com. We'll have everything. I'm all over all the socials. That's where I'm at podcast, and I'm making fun of narcissists every day and all those things. And I have multiple books that I've written. And so you'll find those all over my website and everywhere. You'll find everything on my website. I try to like jam pack it full of stuff. And so I don't know what's next, but it's my 2-year anniversary of my podcast, and I'm just going to keep going. I have some amazing guests lined up. I'm so excited.
Yay, that's
And
exciting.
so, yeah, I just am trying to bring in more people to help my listeners
Hmm.
to heal. Because I have to tell you, one of my friends recently said, yeah, I was telling somebody about your podcast and they said, what's a narcissist? And I
Oh
go, oh
my
my
gosh.
gosh, my work here is not done.
Oh,
So
yeah,
yeah, we think the word is overused. It is not
yeah.
because not everybody knows what we're talking about. So what about you? Tell me
Well, thank you for
every
asking.
and also Well, what are you dreaming about next for your show or even your coaching?
Oh, well, I have a lot of big dreams and ideas. I have coaching that I do, obviously, because I'm a coach to help people emotionally abuse victims and survivors heal those wounds at the root level because I feel like coping is just something that is not something I want to do.
Yeah,
And if you're tired of coping, then that's the work that I do gets to the root. It's a subconscious method. It's
love it.
simple 4-step method. I have a community also online. It's a subscription, like a monthly subscription, where I coach live in there 4 times a
Mm.
month. There's other survivors. It's incognito. So if you ever feel like, because I don't show my face, you'll never see
Yeah.
my face anywhere. So I wanted a space for people who wanted that too. So you can like keep
Hmm.
your camera off. You can change your name even if you don't want to use your real name. That's fine.
Hmm.
So I have those kinds of things already and like different like online trainings and stuff, but something that I'm really excited about that is
Hmm.
brewing that I'm getting ready to create is a how do I want to say this? It has to do with our energetic frequencies
Okay.
and raising your vibration
Mhm.
through acoustics, sound, and audio
Amazing.
in a format of an app. So and like
Oh
helping
my
to
gosh.
reprogram the subconscious mind and like really like immerse yourself in these healing frequencies and stuff. So I'm like super, super excited
Oh my
about that.
gosh.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing. Oh my
So
gosh.
and like I think it could be like a super affordable tool
Yeah.
for people to start to utilize to help them, if you're in a
Yeah.
really sad state to get you feeling better, if
Yes.
you're not motivated to help you feel motivated, different things like that. So you can find all that stuff obviously in what I'm working on and all the things that I'm trying to help survivors. And my big dream is that like I can donate that to like women's shelters and stuff, and then they can
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
have these opportunities to like change how they feel like on a really deep level. So,
That's amazing. Okay,
yeah.
so tell us your podcast.
My podcast is called the Be a Better You podcast. So, every episode, I have lots of episodes with guests like yourself. And then I also have a lot of like teaching podcast episodes that I include that are focused on things that people really struggle with, like rumination and, feeling trauma bonded and getting defensive and like any and all topics that I can include to help you be
Hmm.
the best version of yourself that you can be.
I love that.
Thanks.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
This was really good. This was
Yeah.
good, and
I really enjoyed it.
I hope it was helpful to everybody. And of course, everybody go out there and touch all the buttons in podcast land. You have to go to Apple and Spotify and touch all the buttons and tell
Yes.
them that you love us and leave us a 5-star review, all that, or we can't
Please,
keep doing this work. We have
please
to.
do.
I mean, this is how the game works, you know. So
Yes.
so if you found it helpful, of course, share this with a friend and all that. Thank you, Allison, so much. I
Thank you. I
appreciate
I
it.
appreciate you, and maybe we'll have to do this again sometime.
Anytime.
All
Or
right.
live or anything.
Okay. Thanks everybody for listening.
Well, thank you so much for listening to our joint episode between me and Laura Richards. I really hope that you'll go check out her podcast if you aren't already a listener, or her books. You can get all of the information in the show notes on this episode. Now, if you would, I would love for you to go out to the Be a Better You podcast, wherever you're listening, and give me a review for the podcast. 5 stars would be amazing if you could, because here's the thing. When you listen and review, those reviews go out to other people. The podcast platform shows these podcasts to other people. So it really helps get the word out so that other people can find this kind of healing as well. So if you found any value in this podcast, please do me a huge favor and go out today and leave me a review. And I would be eternally grateful for that. So again, I appreciate you being here, coming in every week and listening to my episodes with other support people and healers and content creators who are here to help make the world a better place. So thank you so much, and I will talk to you guys next week.